Hello plant people, it's Nora, the Leca Queen. Thank you for joining me. We are going to be talking about when is the right time to move your cutting from water or moss or perlite into its forever home. I've got some plants here that I'm going to use to demonstrate to you when is a good time to move your plants. So obviously when to move your plant is going to be dependent on whether those roots are ready to live outside of the propagation medium. So in my instance, I use water propagation for all my propagations, and then I put my propagations into Leca. So that is what I'm going to be discussing today. Some of you will remember this plant. I got this plant probably a couple of months ago now, and I'm using the long method of moving this plant from soil to Leca, where I put the plant up in a Clonix clone solution and Clonix clone and root zone solution, which I call my special sauce. And I have the plant sit in this solution for a number of weeks until it develops new water roots, or I know that the soil roots that it's got are going to be able to survive in Leca. So I'll show you what this silver cloud now looks like. I'll just pull one of these. Oh, I've got two of them there. I'll pull one of these out. So this is my plant. This is my silver cloud. This is the root system here. So as you can see, these dark roots are soil roots. And when I tug on these, some of them will come off, and I expect that to happen. So these roots would not have been viable in Leca, and they would have been falling off and been dying, and that would have led to root rot for my plant, possibly. But now I'm able to wash those off, and that won't be a problem. So that's point number one. Point number two is I've actually got new roots. If you look at this one, this is actually a new root that came off of that node over there. That's a new root. That wasn't there before. That is a viable water root that will do very well in Leca. Same as that one. That is a new root that will do very well. But what you will see as well is, let me try and isolate this one. You can see that this root was actually formerly a soil root. It was one of the soil roots. You can see that it's quite dark in there. So this root was living in the soil. But what has happened is you've got these new roots, these secondary roots that are actually coming off the primary root there. And these are water roots. And this soil root, when I tug at it, that's not moving at all. So that's quite accustomed to living in a water environment, and it will do very, very well in Leca. So same thing has happened with a number of those water roots as well. I'll pull out the second plant. So this is another one of my silver clouds. I had two of them, and look at that. That is a new root. So what you want with your roots is you want your roots to be at least 1 inch long. So that root is definitely more than 1 inch long. 1 inch being about 2.5 centimeters, which is about that much. So that's way more than that. Definitely when you see your roots getting to that length, they're ready to be moved from the water medium into Leca. But again, you can see that this is a soil root over here that now has secondary roots. So what you really do want to see is your primary roots obtaining secondary roots. And of course, secondary roots being these little roots that are coming off of the first long root. So this plant is very, very ready to go into a Leca medium. I'll show you another one. I've got my Gigas, tomato. I've got this plant over here. Now, some of you will remember this plant. I got this plant as a bargain buy from my store here. This plant normally retails for $60 here in Australia, but it was looking a bit thirsty and it just looked generally sad in the store. So I asked I asked for a discount and they sold it to me for $20. So guys, you know, if you don't get, you don't ask. You must always ask. So I got this gorgeous, gorgeous plant, and my aim was to chop it up and actually prop up one of my other plants that I've got living on a moss pole in Leca, but just looks very sad because the pole is quite sparse. So I'll show you what this plant has been doing. It's also been living in my special sauce for a number of weeks now, and it is ready to be potted up. So I'll show this one to you as well. So I've got 3 of them in here. So this is a perfect example of what the long method can do. So when you're transferring a plant from soil to Leca, I've got a method, what I call the long method. It's just what I call it. I don't know if I read it somewhere and somebody else calls it the long method. And if you do know someone who calls it the long method, I'm more than happy to credit them for it. But at the moment, I don't know. So I call it the long method. I think I coined that, but I don't know. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments below. But yes, back to the plant. So this is the plant. And you can see this is really, really good. This is a water root. This right here, sorry, this is a soil root. You can see that it's dark, right? And this section of it is now a water root. This bits of the root actually were formed while the plant was living in my special sauce. And there's how many of them there? There's 4 of them there. How cool is that? And look at how fuzzy they are. It's just, they're just absolutely brilliant. And then you've got this other section all the way over here. So these as well are just completely new. And you can actually see, I don't know if I can show that to you properly. Over here, there's actually a new growth point. This one little bit over there, that's a new growth point. It's brilliant. Look at those leaves. They are thick, they are fuzzy, they are ready to go into Leca. But I'll show you the old soil root. So this is an old soil root, and I tug at it. There's some coming off, which is great because I don't want that. I want that to go. So I will pull off as much of that as I can. And if it comes off, great, because you can see that's all just coming off. I don't need that because this plant now has a new root system that will support it in Leca. There's also another root right there. Right there. There's another one right there. So this plant is ready to be potted up in Leca. I'll show you another cutting. This is another cutting that I made. And look at those gorgeous fuzzies. Look at how gorgeous those are. There's that root there, that root there, that root there. So this actually was a proper cutting. It did not have any roots on this at all. And those have all emerged from the node that is over here. And you can see one of these actually has secondary roots. So the root has got roots, and that's what I call a secondary root. And these are more than 1 inch long. So this cutting is ready to go into Leca. I'll show you yet another one. So this is another cutting. So lots of roots, lots and lots of roots, more than 1 inch long, and that plant is more than ready to go into Leca. So I'll also show you, I've got a Cebu Blue here. Some of you might remember this Cebu Blue. It's a Cebu Blue wide form. So it's got wider leaves than the narrower form. And I've had this living in this special sauce and going through the long method of soil to Leca transfer, but also I made a cutting because I want to have a bushy pole. So I will show you first what the long method plant looks like. So this was the original base of the plant, okay? And this one is the soil root. This was a soil root. You can tell because it's very, very dark. This has now developed a water root right at the end. See, that is a lot whiter than the root at the beginning. So this root is actually quite viable. When I tug at this, nothing happens. So this will be quite viable in Leca. And then I've got these ones that initially started off as soil roots. You can see that they're pretty dark there, but they have acquired these new water roots. And when I tug at this, I'm not getting anything sloughing off. So this plant is more than ready to go into Leca. But what you can see as well with this plant is it's actually developed a new growth point. And this is all while it's been sitting in my special sauce. And that's one of the things that's really important about using a medium that helps the plant to root, but also feeds the plant. And that's what Clonex Clone Solution does. So I'm not just putting my plants in water to propagate, because water has no nutrition whatsoever. Clonex Clone Solution has nutrition, so the plant is able to develop new roots, but it's also still being fed. So the leaves still look lush, it's getting food, and it can continue to grow. So that's what I really, really love about using Clonex Clone. I will show you the cuttings. So I made a cutting, and this is from the cutting. So that root is more than 1 inch long, more than ready to go into Leca. But I'll show you this little root here. This also has developed secondary roots. So you've got this one, and this one, all coming off of this root here. So that's doing really, really well. And while this cutting's been in the solution, it's actually developed this leaf. Not the best looking leaf, granted, but it's a leaf nonetheless. So the plant is being fed and it continues to grow and roots are forming. So that's one. I've got another one. So I had 2 cuttings off this Cebu Blue, and that's one root over there. That's a water root, really, really long, really happy. More importantly, there is a new growth point. There's a growth point over here. So this plant is doing really, really well and is ready to actually be potted up, to be put on a moss pole and be potted up in Leca at this point. So what's the important thing? The important thing is to, when you've propagated your plant, the roots need to be at least 1 inch long. But you don't want to leave it there for so long, especially if you're moving your plant from the propagation media to soil, because when the plant has been living in this hydro environment, the roots are used to being quite wet. But when you move it to soil, they won't be as wet. So unless you keep your soil wetter than normal, the roots might not do so well because they're accustomed to being in that wet environment. So I've got my Gigas plant here, and I'm going to put my cuttings up on this moss pole so that they all grow together and my pole eventually becomes very, very lush. So I will show you how I do that. Let me bring you closer. I'll take my plant out of the Leca. So just gently squeezing and taking the Leca off of the plant. So I'll show you what that looks like. That is the root system for my plant here. That looks absolutely glorious. So you can see these roots here. Oh, hang on, move out the way. These darker roots here, these roots were the original roots. And these lighter roots are the roots that have developed while the plant has been living in Leca. So what you see, when I pull at those, they come off. You can see that. So what I'm going to do is actually just go and wash off the root system of this plant and try and get rid of all this that I can, because I don't want all that stuff living in on my plant. So I'm just going to go and give that a wash, and I will be back in a minute. So that there is my plant washed off. And as you can see, most of those roots are now gone, and I've just left with some lovely, lovely looking roots. So what I'm going to do now is attach my cuttings to my moss pole, okay? Because that helps me control where the roots are. I do not want my roots touching the moist moss. So I've got a cutting here, and I will place that there. So I want all the roots to be in touch with the leca and not the moss. So I've got another one here. I've got my plant ties to help me keep those plants in position. So this is quite a fiddly process. I really do not like doing this at all. But so there, that looks about right. So that's my plant there. And I will get a chance to adjust these. I've got my pot here that I've gone and had a chance to wash. I've got my leca that I've washed, and I will put some leca in my pot. I will get my pole. This is my roots there. I want to make sure they're all inside. And that is where I've got my plant. So I will now fill up this pot with leca. So this is my plant that I have potted up, and that's looking really, really good now. So you can imagine what that's going to look like. It's all going to grow up, and this whole pole is going to be surrounded by this plant. So I can't wait for that to happen. So yeah, that's how that works. So, you know, propagate your plant. When you propagate your plant, let the roots develop, and when they are well and truly ready, at least 1 inch to 2 inches long with some secondary roots, you can then move your plant from the propagation medium to its forever home. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.